If you've spent any time learning about MBTI, you've probably noticed something strange. The same cognitive function can seem completely different depending on which personality type is using it. So, which description is actually correct? The answer is all of them. Let's find out why. Part 1. Understanding the function. Introverted intuition is a perception function. Its job is not to make decisions or determine what is right or wrong. Instead, it tries to answer a different question: where is all of this leading? While some cognitive functions naturally collect information from the outside world, introverted intuition spends much of its time looking inward. It takes countless observations, memories, and experiences, then quietly searches for the deeper pattern connecting them all. Rather than seeing dozens of separate events, it gradually forms one underlying explanation that ties everything together. This is why people often describe introverted intuition as being future-focused, but that description is only partially true. It isn't constantly predicting random events or trying to guess tomorrow's lottery numbers. What it actually does is identify trajectories. It notices that if certain patterns continue, certain outcomes become increasingly likely. Imagine watching someone make the same small mistake over and over again. Another person might simply notice the repeated behavior. Introverted intuition immediately starts asking where that pattern ends. Does it become a larger problem? Does it slowly damage a relationship? Does it eventually create an opportunity? It naturally follows patterns forward through time. This process usually happens beneath conscious awareness. Someone using introverted intuition may struggle to explain exactly how they arrived at a conclusion because the mind has already connected dozens of tiny observations automatically. They often describe it as a gut feeling or an insight that suddenly appeared. To everyone else, the conclusion may seem to come out of nowhere, but internally, it is the result of many subtle pieces finally clicking together. Because of this, introverted intuition prefers depth over breadth. Instead of exploring 20 different possibilities equally, it wants to narrow everything down until one explanation seems to fit best. It is constantly filtering away distractions, looking for what matters most. This also explains one of the biggest misconceptions about introverted intuition. People sometimes imagine it as something mystical or supernatural, as though it grants psychic abilities. In reality, it is simply a different way of processing information. It recognizes patterns that are often too subtle or too spread out for conscious analysis. The conclusions may feel mysterious, but the process itself is still rooted in observation and experience. Another misconception is that introverted intuition ignores reality. It doesn't. Every insight still depends on information gathered somehow. The difference is that the mind quickly moves beyond the obvious details and becomes interested in the meaning behind them. Facts become symbols, events become trends, individual moments become part of a larger story. At its healthiest, introverted intuition gives people remarkable clarity. It helps them anticipate problems before they happen, recognize hidden opportunities, and remain focused on long-term goals even when the present moment is distracting. Like every cognitive function, though, introverted intuition changes dramatically depending on where it sits in the personality. The function itself never changes. What changes is how much confidence a person has in it, how responsibly they use it, and how naturally they trust what it tells them. Part 2. Hero Function. When introverted intuition appears as the hero function, it belongs to INTJ and INFJ. The hero position is the part of the mind that feels the most natural. It is trusted almost automatically. People with hero introverted intuition rarely question whether they should look for deeper patterns because that's simply how their minds already work. These individuals often experience life as one continuous chain of interconnected meanings. They aren't satisfied with surface-level explanations because they instinctively believe there must be something underneath. If a company suddenly changes direction, they wonder what larger strategy is unfolding. If a friend starts behaving differently, they become curious about the underlying cause rather than just reacting to the behavior itself. Because they trust introverted intuition so completely, they often commit strongly to their long-term vision. Once they become convinced they've identified the right direction, they can display incredible persistence. Temporary setbacks feel like obstacles along the path rather than reasons to abandon it altogether. This confidence allows them to simplify complex situations surprisingly well. Where others become overwhelmed by dozens of variables, hero introverted intuition naturally starts eliminating noise until only the essential pattern remains. It creates the feeling that everything finally makes sense. That confidence, however, can become a blind spot. Because their insights usually prove useful, Hero users may begin assuming their interpretation is automatically the correct one. They may dismiss alternative explanations too quickly or stop gathering new information because they already feel they've reached the answer. Sometimes their confidence in the destination causes them to overlook important details happening right in front of them. Imagine assembling a puzzle. Most people look carefully at each piece before deciding where it belongs. Hero. Introverted intuition often believes it already knows what the finished picture should look like. That can be incredibly efficient when the overall vision is accurate, but frustrating when an important piece doesn't actually fit. Still, when balanced with openness and humility, hero introverted intuition becomes an extraordinary source of direction. It gives people a strong internal compass that helps them navigate uncertainty without constantly needing reassurance from the outside world. That same ability to see the future can also appear in a different way when introverted intuition moves into the parent position. Part 3. Parent Function. When introverted intuition appears as the parent function, it belongs to ENTJ and ENFJ. The parent position is confident, but its confidence serves a purpose beyond the self. Rather than asking, "What future do I want?" it often asks, "How can I help someone else reach a better future?" People with parent introverted intuition frequently use their insights to guide others. They notice where someone's current path seems to be leading and gently encourage adjustments before problems become much larger. Their predictions aren't shared simply to prove they're right, they're shared because they feel responsible for helping others avoid unnecessary hardship. This often makes them natural mentors, coaches, teachers, or leaders. They enjoy helping people connect today's choices with tomorrow's consequences. Instead of focusing only on immediate solutions, they encourage long-term thinking. For example, if a friend constantly procrastinates, parent introverted intuition is less interested in criticizing today's missed deadline and more interested in explaining the larger pattern. They may say, "I'm not worried about this assignment by itself. I'm worried about what happens if this becomes your normal habit." The parent position also introduces a certain humility. Unlike the hero position, which naturally trusts its own vision first, the parent position often double-checks itself because it understands the responsibility that comes with influencing other people. It recognizes that a prediction affects real lives, so it tries to use its insight carefully rather than impulsively. Even so, this sense of responsibility can sometimes become heavy. Parent introverted intuition may worry excessively about preventing future problems, or feel personally responsible for outcomes that ultimately remain outside their control. Watching someone ignore good advice can be surprisingly frustrating because they already see the direction things appear to be heading. Even with those challenges, parent introverted intuition often becomes a stabilizing influence. It quietly helps people make wiser, long-term decisions without demanding constant attention or recognition. That same function becomes much lighter and more playful in the child position. Part 4. Child Function. When introverted intuition appears as the child function, it belongs to ISTP and ISFP. The child position is comfortable and optimistic, but it is still developing. It enjoys using the function, yet it doesn't always carry the same responsibility or consistency as the hero or parent positions. Child introverted intuition often shows up as an enjoyable fascination with possibilities hiding beneath the surface. These individuals may love solving mysteries, noticing symbolism in stories, or suddenly making clever connections that surprise everyone around them. When an insight appears, it can feel exciting, almost like discovering a secret hidden in plain sight. They genuinely enjoy those moments when everything suddenly clicks into place. Unlike hero introverted intuition, though, they may not constantly rely on these insights. Instead, they often alternate between trusting them and simply enjoying them. Sometimes they'll confidently predict how something will unfold, and other times they'll shrug and say, "We'll see what happens." This gives the child position a certain openness. They aren't usually obsessed with forcing the future into a specific shape. They simply enjoy recognizing patterns whenever they appear. Because the function is still maturing, child introverted intuition can occasionally become overconfident in a particularly exciting insight. A single interesting theory may feel so satisfying that they become attached to it before gathering enough evidence. Like many childlike qualities, the enthusiasm arrives before the wisdom. Fortunately, experience gradually strengthens the function. Over time, they learn which instincts deserve immediate trust and which ones simply need a little more observation before becoming conclusions. The result is a relationship with introverted intuition that often feels creative, curious, and enjoyable. It isn't burdened by constant responsibility, but it also isn't fully developed. It represents potential that continues growing throughout life. That brings us to the final position, where introverted intuition becomes both deeply admired and deeply intimidating. Part 5. Inferior Function. When introverted intuition appears as the inferior function, it belongs to ESTP and ESFP. The inferior position is often misunderstood. It is not simply the weakest function or something a person never uses. Instead, it represents an area of both insecurity and aspiration. People often admire what this function offers while simultaneously doubting their own ability to rely on it consistently. For someone with inferior introverted intuition, trusting a single long-term vision can feel uncomfortable. They often feel far more confident responding to what is happening right now than committing to one prediction about the future. They may wonder whether they're seeing the real pattern or simply imagining one. Is this actually where things are heading, or am I overthinking it? That uncertainty can make long-term planning feel surprisingly stressful. Ironically, this often creates periods where they swing between extremes. Most of the time, they stay grounded in immediate reality, but under stress, they may suddenly become convinced that one negative future is inevitable. A small problem starts feeling like the beginning of disaster because the normally cautious relationship with introverted intuition becomes overwhelmed by anxiety. At healthier moments, though, inferior introverted intuition becomes a tremendous source of growth. As confidence develops, they begin realizing they don't have to choose between living in the present and thinking about the future. They can appreciate immediate experiences while also recognizing larger patterns and long-term consequences. Instead of avoiding future planning altogether, they gradually become more comfortable making thoughtful predictions without expecting absolute certainty. One of the most rewarding aspects of growth in the inferior position is that it often feels genuinely earned. Every step toward trusting introverted intuition represents experience, reflection, and personal development, rather than something that came naturally from the beginning. Over time, they learn that intuition doesn't require perfect certainty. It simply requires enough confidence to notice the direction a pattern is moving and the willingness to prepare accordingly. Once that balance develops, introverted intuition transforms from an intimidating mystery into a valuable guide, one that doesn't replace living in the present but quietly helps ensure today's choices lead toward a better tomorrow. By now, hopefully you've seen that this cognitive function never actually changed. Whether it appeared as the hero, parent, child, or inferior function, it was always the same underlying cognitive process. What changed was the person's relationship with it. One position trusted it instinctively, another used it to support others, another approached it with comfort and curiosity, and another admired it while struggling to fully trust it. In the next video, we'll continue by exploring how this same cognitive function appears in the shadow through the nemesis, critic, trickster, and demon functions.